What is up, everybody? It is Tuesday night, day after Memorial Day. Welcome
Yeah.
back to the Orion podcast. No, my name's Chad. That's that's Zach over there in the corner. We're glad to have you.
We made it.
We made it. Yeah, one fishing trip and a few arrows, and here we are. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the Orion podcast. We got Miss Jean in the house as always. Thank you for being here, Mr. Dustin. Good to see you guys. Good to see you guys out in the fandom. Do we have fandoms? Is that a word?
Don't know. Sure.
Sure. Sounds good, don't it?
Yeah.
Should have changed out the background of your big hook set yesterday, the drone footage.
Yeah.
That could have been our intro. Could have been our
It
intro.
was, but it was a mean rock, whatever it was.
Zach hooked into something yesterday. We never got to see it. It was not a tree. Was not a tree. I can verify. I watched the whole shift and movement of the entire boat and the entire thing, and it was
The head shaking. It did pull drag for a minute. It can be as big as we want it to be because we never put eyes on it. So.
I'm pretty sure it was a school bus.
Yeah.
It,
Sounds good to me.
it was big, dude. Whatever you had a hold of, it was big. Drone footage.
I was certain I was going to get popped right in the forehead with the bottom half of that rod.
That's okay.
But
I would not have cried.
no, the line broke first, so it was good. It's a good trip.
Well, welcome back to the Hoosier State temporarily, my friend. It's good to have you. Good to hang out for a little bit yesterday and
Out here in nature tonight.
out there in nature tonight. Not your usual podcast studio.
No, this is a little breezier.
A little breezier, a little different.
The crickets are a little noisy, but I'll take it.
Rudy says, "Uh-oh, fish stories." Well, Rudy, the good news is I was there with cameras, so you're gonna get to see some of the fish story unfold. I barely got the drone into the air and struggled to get everything turned straight down, but
the drone was taking off as I set the hook.
it was, and it was literally flying out of my hand. It was a hand launch deal, and there was nothing about the whole situation that wasn't typical Chad and Zach sketchiness.
Oh yeah,
Been verified
pants, as of usual.
Yeah, nothing unusual about that at all. So while we're here and while we're talking, it's time to pay a few bills tonight. We got to pay the bills. We got to keep this podcast moving. First of all, we want to thank Orion Coolers for letting us do this thing. For you guys out there in the land that are looking for something, looking for a little Orion cooler, Orion rocks at checkout. Save yourself 5%. We've got a new cooler getting ready to drop this week. We've had the yellow limited cooler out. We've got a new limited edition 55 quart cooler dropping this week. Excited about that. It's one I picked out personally myself. Yeah, excited for you guys to see that one. It's the last
55
one
is such a good size too.
It is. It's a good family size. It's a good family size. Good for the party. Yeah. And then of course, can't thank Orion Coolers without thanking Jackson Kayak. Jackson Kayak allowing us to do what we do. Z-Pro Lithium keeping us powered up. Zach got to feel some of that Z-Pro power yesterday for the first time. And that battery hadn't been charged in 3 days for the record.
Yeah.
So it was on a 3-day kayak fishing bender, and it was still had
did
plenty of
just
power.
fine. Yeah.
Basco Fishing. Good stuff. Good clothes. Check them out, bascofishing.com. And as always, Cast King rods and reels, fishing line, killer stuff. Check them out at castking.com. Pick yourself up an MG12. You will not be disappointed. Magnesium frame, beast of a reel. Be the lightest thing you ever put your hands on. Guaranteed. Yeah. Yeah. What do you think it was? Gene wants to know what we think the fish was.
It probably had whiskers if we were to put money on it.
I'm going to say it had whiskers or it was a foul hooked carp.
Yeah, that's a possibility. There's some big carp in that lake.
There's some big carp. Hindsight, it could have been a giant wiper bass, a hybrid striper.
Possible too. There was a little bit of head shake, and then it was almost like it swam to the bottom and stuck its head to the bottom and just sat there.
It was one of the three. I'm gonna go with one of the three. All right. Now we've got a pretty cool guest tonight.
It was as long as the Bite FD too, if anybody's asking.
It was as long as the Bite FD, weighed as much as a school bus, and there's drone footage. You know, the drone footage could reveal.
We'll launch it right here.
We could. I haven't looked at it, to be honest with you. If it's clear, if the water's clear enough, we might actually get to see it.
I don't know if I ever had that close to the surface.
I don't know. We're gonna find out.
It was only in like 8.5 feet of water, so
well, it was clear on that side. The drone footage could actually tell the tale. Could. I'm interested. I'm interested. Now I got to have to Google it. So we got a cool guest tonight. New to the show. He is a fishing guide. Hails from Miami, Florida. He's got some wild fishing stories, I'm sure, to tell us. We are excited to hear his story, as we are everybody's. Welcome, Captain Alex, bone collector, kayak fishing. We're putting you in the big screen. It's not about us; it's about you. We've already had our little soiree as this thing starts.
I mean, it sounds like Zach cooked Noah's Ark, is what it sounds like.
Yeah,
it could have very well been part of Noah's Ark.
That is what it felt like.
The old log swim.
Exactly. They pull back sometimes.
They do pull back sometimes. I've fought a good
one
many
had a
of them.
gnarly head shake, so it's possible.
It's possible. If the drone picked it up, we'll know here shortly.
I've had my fair share. Monster hook sets, and this big old log comes out. But I've also had logs that have pushed back. You think you're hung up on the bottom, and you're still tugging and it ain't moving. You're like, man, what is going on? And then it wakes up and takes off. You're like, oh boy, big old snook.
It was just taking a break.
Yeah, a big old snook comes out of nowhere. 40-inch snook decides to wake up and cause mayhem.
Thank you for having me. I do have one snook under my belt, but it was only about yay long.
They're all good. Small, big. They're all good. It's the bigger they get, the weirder the fight gets. It gets more interesting. Yeah. It gets it makes you your heart patter a little bit when they start getting bigger and bigger. They make you think.
I can
imagine. They'll make you think, especially if you're near structure and things get gnarly. It gets You got to be quick on your feet.
No, the tarpon game.
I would imagine so.
Tarpon from the kayak. We need to get into
those
that.
Are fun. Those are fun.
Tarpon's still on my list.
I've done the big ones. I'm not sure if you guys ever heard of. Well, before that, thank you for having me on the show.
Hey, no problem, man.
We got off straight onto Noah's Ark over here with Zach.
That's pretty regular on the Orion podcast. Squirrel.
Back in the days, I'm not sure. I haven't even followed it anymore. But back in the days, I want to say 2009, 2008, there used to be a kayak tournament called Kayak Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And I did it 2 years in a row. We came out of nowhere. I made the dream team is what we did. I put together some of the craziest guys down here in South Florida. And it was always the same group of people that were winning the tournament. And it was time to put that to sleep. And we pissed off a lot of people. We showed up kind of. We hustled the whole scheme. We stayed quiet for about 4 or 5 months, kind of putting a couple numbers here, and then we just laid the hammer on everybody: blackfin tunas, wahoos, sailfish, giant tarpon. I think throughout the first few years of the tournament, every year I think only like 10 tarpon were caught, and on the first week, you were allotted 10 tarpon a week, and on the first like 2 days, I dropped 10 tarpon. So I crushed. Yeah, I crushed it. I caught over 130 tarpon in that little period of time, and every fish was between 63 inches to like 80 something inches. So you're talking about 60 inches to about 140, 150 pound tarpon. I caught a lot of tarpon. So I'm kind of tarponed out. I've caught them on the skiff. I've caught them at night during the day. I've caught them on fly, kind of how I do it now. But kind of tarponed out. I do like the little ones. That's kind of my thing. I rather the micros all the way up to like 30 pounds, 40 pounds pushing it. They're manageable. You can get them on the boat, take a picture, and let them go, and they swim off.
Right.
You get a big 60 pounder, 80 pounder, and you're holding it by that jaw and kind of twisting it onto the kayak. The mortality rate goes down significantly. I've watched it. I've had people tell me, "Oh, they swim off." They may swim off, but honestly, I've followed them on the kayak and I've watched them swim, kick 10 feet, and just roll over. It's done deal. It's done deal. And if you're sitting in deep water, I personally am not going to jump into 10 feet of water to go rescue a 100-pound tarpon because the chances are that there's a big giant shark swimming around are pretty high.
Yeah, that was my big question. I've seen the Scott Martin ones where they're always, they always fight them.
I've had them jump on. I had about 60, 70-pound tarpon. I was fighting it, and the fish started acting weird. And I watched the tarpon turn around and come screaming underneath the kayak, about a foot from underneath the kayak. And I'm looking at all this happening. And right behind it was about a 200, 300-pound bull shark chasing it down and hit the bottom of the kayak and everything. And unbeknownst to people, bull sharks will jump out of the water. Everybody doesn't know about it, but I've seen a lot of big bull sharks jump. And it jumped out. Time for bedtime, Bubba. Kiddo, time for bed. I watched this big 200-pound shark just jump on top of that tarpon's back, and it was gone. There was nothing I could do. I didn't have enough time to open the bail. It was just a cat and mouse game. And after that, I've had a few instances where these bull sharks have done it to me a few times. I just backed off. I'll do the big tarpon thing every once in a while. I've done it at night. Show up at the marina at 1 o'clock in the morning, launch, and they're underneath the bridges. And you paddle 100 yards from the marina on the first bridge, and they're sitting on the shadow line. And I mean, there's shrimp everywhere. You throw big hoagies. I mean, anything with a big kind of slender profile that either mimics a mullet or a little shrimp, it's lights out. You'll jump 20 fish and land like 2 because they'll get you in structure. So you got to coach them out. I've done so many of those.
That's awesome.
Sorry to interrupt you, but talking about like
mortality rate on those big fish like that, just overstress them and stuff. What's kind of the average age on like a 65 to 80-pound tarpon? Like
you're probably looking at like a 30, 40-year-old fish.
Yeah,
wow.
That's what I was.
It's an old fish.
Right.
I'll catch them. Don't get me wrong, but I won't bring them up anymore. I've had clients hook them, and we'll fight them. And I have certain techniques that lends itself to landing these fish a lot quicker. It ain't the safest. It's fun, but it ain't safe. You're literally reeling down on that fish's face, and especially on the kayak. It's easier on the kayak than it is on the skiff because you have to be in tune with the guy that's driving the boat. But on the kayak, since you're being dragged, you can reel up right up next to that fish, and your fish is swimming next to you while you're fighting it. And all you got to do is just hold the reel, palm of the reel, and just lean back, and the fish jumps. Now, the odds are a 50-50 that the fish jumps to the left and gets away from you, or flops and lands on top of you. So now you got to play with you got to weigh the scale. Do you want a 160-pound or between a 60 or 100-pound fish landing on you and seriously hurting you, or do you want to play this little gamut and get the fish done, and you'll tire out a 100-pound fish in 10 minutes? You're done. The fish is flopped over. It's over. The fight's over. I've done it a handful of times. I've done it on fly. I mean, government cut here in Miami is last they dredged it. I think it goes down to like 48 feet, 50 feet in some spots. You let a 80-pound, 60-pound tarpon sound and hit that bottom of that thermocline, and there's no digging that fish out. I don't care who you are. You're gonna have to fight tooth and nail to get it out. And I warped a prototype when Reddington came out with the Vampin. I had the prototype, and I warped the carbon fiber of the rod. Instead of I left it oval, so that the heel of the fly reel would shoot out in one direction. You would have to catch it and just hold the rod, and my buddy would have to come over, reseat it, and then we would continue. But I sent that rod in, and they had no idea how I warped the spine of that fly rod. I completely destroyed the fly rod. It was done. The rod was cooked. They're like, we have no idea how you did this. But I never let that fish. My buddies that I've caught hundreds of tarpon on fly, their jaws were dropped. I was like, I've never seen someone manhandle a 100-pound fish like you did. I was like, I didn't let it go down not even 5 feet. I just boldly did. Mind you, I was not using IGFA leaders. I was just literally using a straight 80 shot all the way to the end. I could bully this fish all I wanted. It was straight 80. I was in no tapered leader or nothing like that. It was just go in there and muscle his fish. But that's how you beat them. You have to break their soul. Like, if you don't demoralize them and they get that second wind and they start rolling and catching your breath, you're in for a long battle with them. So they're fun. I mean, I learned a lot over all those fish that I caught. They all have personality. They all do something different. They all fight you different. Some fish know the cadence, and they'll kind of like do their thing, and they'll jump and they'll run, and then they'll just back off. And they'll hit the current, whichever direction it's going, and they'll ride that current all the way through. And it's up to you to either pump the brakes on them or get towed around for 3 miles, and they'll end up in either a structure or a bridge or something and break you off.
Right.
And then the problem is that now you've gone into an hour-long fight and you've stressed that fish out. Although it's still kicking and dragging you, that fish is completely stressed out, and your mortality rate just keeps climbing. Either it's going to get predated on by a shark, or it's just, once you let it go, it's just going to die. So I've backed off of doing the big fish, especially with clients. I mean, the higher end clients, I know what they're doing, and I can kind of coach them, and they're fearless, and they fought big fish before, because that's the other thing. You can't put someone that's never caught a big fish and put them on a kayak and get dragged around by 100+ pound fish. Right. It's all about angles, and that fish gets sideways on you, and now you're fighting it sideways, and you get off balance. You're either going in the water or you're flipping the kayak. It's one or the other. You want to be straight forward with that fish at all times and know how to turn that boat. Even with the rod, you can spin that boat around. Or luckily now with a torpedo, I can kind of ram them by the side and kind of pitch them in the right direction and kind of slow them down a little bit and kind of gauge which direction the fish are going and kind of move them in that direction. But I stick to my permit. I stick to my bonefish. They're fun.
There you go.
They pull just as hard, and they're so much smaller, and they're manageable. And they take pretty pictures, and I know it's not a silver king and it's not this prestigious fish. Again, don't get me wrong. I love catching them. I just feel bad for them. I really do. Yeah. It's an onslaught that they take from December.
Get beat on a lot down there.
From December all the way through June, it's nonstop. Because in December they're in the passes. They're either in Government Cut, they're in Key Biscayne, they're in the Miami River. They're in all these main avenues, Hollow. They're on these main avenues, and there's a million people pounding on them. I drove through Bahia Honda 3 weeks ago, and I could walk clear across Bahia Honda, that 2-mile stretch of Bahia Honda, and never wet a toe. I could literally walk from boat to boat. That's how many boats were parked under there. They were all catching fish. The tarpon were down there stacked up. I mean, there must have been a billion of them down there, but it happens every year.
Right.
So, but you imagine the pounding those fish take, it's just nonstop. So,
Yeah.
Again, I'd rather go catch a 30, 40 pounder. You get everything you need from them. They pull hard. You're going to get about a 5-10 minute fight. They're going to jump like crazy. They're going to try to get you in structure, just like the big ones. There's nothing different. It's just a smaller, scaled down fish, and it's manageable. I can grab it. My clients can grab them, and they won't hurt you, or they won't hurt themselves as bad as a big one. You can lift them up, take a quick picture, and send them on their way, and they usually rock it out of your hands. So it's not like a small fish, you know. And
land more of them too, right?
You can land exactly. You can. I saw about, was it 2 weeks ago? I was in somewhere in Big Pine. We probably must have seen like 200 tarpon, And just one little cove. There was just every 10 feet, there was another new school of like 10 or 12 of them every 10 feet.
Wow.
It was just, all right, we jumped on here. Let's move down 10 feet. Here comes the next school. You can see the big balls moving and them rolling. So, all right, toss in front of them, boom, 20-pounder up in the air, 25-pounder. And you're up close to the trees, so you still have to get down and dirty with them and put the heat on them because they will get you in the trees and they will jump. And I've had fish jump 5 feet into the trees where I've had to ditch the kayak, go into the mangroves, get them out because I could hear them flopping around in dry land on top of the trees. So I had to go in there and get them out. Came out holding a tarpon and my client's cracking up. I was like, yeah, I'm not letting you die. Take a picture with your phone, all right, and dump them back in. And you're good to go. And grab my kayak and back at it again. So
nice.
But this is just the season for it. I mean, tarpon season's here. From here to, I want to say, maybe early October. It's good, especially with the micros. The hotter it gets, the more seasonal rain that we get, the more fired up they get. We start getting a lot of tannic water that gets pushed off from the roadways and from all the back bayous that we have, all the little estuaries. All that fresh water gets kind of pushed out. The salinity rate crashes and the oxygen level crashes, and they can handle it. So you'll see them jazzed up, and we call that shrimp hatches. They're really not shrimp hatches, but it's all the bait fish flickering, trying to catch air. So you'll see the water just moving with shrimps and little bait fish flickering, and the tarpon are at 100 Mach 1 because they're gulping air and just pushing it through, and they're just fired up.
Right.
So it's the easiest way to get crazy numbers. You get out there one morning and you're kind of cruising, you see the birds, you better go. And you show up and there's about 100 tarpon tail slapping and free jumping and just having a ball. And whatever you throw in there, I mean, whatever. You can throw a burner frog in there and they'll probably eat it. I've thrown silly things at them during those things and they just smack everything. It moves, it's dead.
Nice.
Those are those fun mornings, and this is where we're entering it. We're here. We're at that pinnacle where it starts getting really good. It's hot, really hot.
So, kind of backing up here just a little bit. So, Alex, how did you get started in the outdoors? Like, what led you to the path that you're on now, as far as being an outdoorsman and taking on the guiding service that you have?
Always fished. My grandfather instilled it in me, and it was a bug. As soon as I came down from California and started hanging out with him and got dragged around fishing with him, I was eating, sleeping, fishing. That's all I wanted to do. And my grandfather loved fishing, so he would fish Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays. So I was out on the boat with him. And then as time progressed and I got a little older and wiser, my parents had a house down in the Keys, place in the Keys, and I spent a lot of times. I was Keys rat for the summer. So school would let out, and the only thing that kind of drew me back up to my house in Miami was football season. And as I got older, that kind of took precedent, but fishing always took first step, and went to school, and it just fishing always, no matter what career path or what hobby secondary to fishing I would take, fishing would always kind of get steered back in. Everything always led me to fishing. And one day, we got rid of all the boats. We got rid of everything. I was sick and tired of shore fishing. I didn't think it's just not my thing. I really don't like walking banks. I kind of want to just disappear and get away from people. And my grandfather was actually selling his old house, and we had enough property there. He had a big property that I was able to store a boat there. And my grandfather was like, listen, we can't do the boat thing anymore because I'm going to sell the property. So no boat. My parents were like, no boat. I was living in an apartment. I was like, yeah, well, I'm not going to pay storage for a boat. And I had a buddy that had a kayak. He had a Pelican that he bought at Sports Authority. He never used it. He just bought it just for just purposes of having it. And I asked him to borrow it, and I got on it, and I started moving around on it. Every once in a while I would borrow it, and I was like, this could work. So I started shopping and got myself my first used kayak, which was a Cobra kayak. I think it was a Navigator, tiny little kayak. It was like 10 feet or 11 feet long, and I outgrew that kayak in literally 4 months.
Oh,
After like the third or fourth big tarpon that I hooked off that thing, I was like, this is not safe. I do not feel good on this kayak. So I went, sold that thing immediately, and got myself a Prowler, Ocean Kayak Prowler. and actually was real happy with that boat. That boat it handled a lot of the pressure I gave it. I was able to stand on it, and that's when I started really exploring. I started going to the Everglades, doing the backcountry, fishing the ocean, the what we call the front side, which is the bay side, which is just flats, endless amount flats with some islands out there. And we were kind of pioneering that. There was not a lot of kayakers out there, and it was only maybe like 5 or 6 of us that were brave enough. Everybody had this stigma that you were going to get torn up by a croc or an alligator or a bull shark, some shark. So the kayakers never went out there. It was always stiff guides. So we started pioneering that, and we started pushing the limits with the kayaks. So like, let's keep going, let's keep going, let's keep looking. And that sense and that urge to keep exploring just evolved, and it just grew more. And I mean, it cost relationships, it cost all kinds of stuff, money, jobs. I mean, I didn't care. I just wanted to eat and consume this as much as possible because it was that much fun. I mean, we did a trip from Flamingo to Island Murata on the kayaks, which is probably like a 60-mile trip.
Wow.
Slept on islands out there. Yeah, we had people pulling up on skiffs and like boats, like freaking out. Like, do you need calls? Like, do you need to get away from us? I was like, there's taming permit and there's bonefish around here, and you're like pestering us. Like, no, we're just concerned. I was like, I know where we're at. We're in 9 Mile Bank. Like, get away from us. We know what we're doing. We really didn't know what we were doing. We were literally sitting there with a paper map, plotting our trout. Be like, all right, I think this is the triplets. This is the Lido. This is Warsaw. This is Johnson. This is Rabbit. Like, we're kind of like picking and choosing. We kind of had a route. We were right on schedule all the time. Like, we didn't miss an island, so our plotting was pretty on point. But it just grew, and then I got a call. There was another teammate. There was a teammate that used to be on Jackson that reached out to Jameson and Brooks, and pretty much told them about me. Jameson and Brooks came down to Key West to fish with Randy, that was part of the team as well too, and they invited me with Drew. So it was Drew, Brooks, and Jameson. I think I forgot the other person that was in there. I think there was someone else, but we all went down there, and I met all those guys down there, and I was able to get on the original, like the first models, like the pre-run models, like the test runs of the Cuda. 14, and I was like, this is the boat. It's fast, it's stable. The seating was amazing. I was kind of sick and tired of the Prowler sitting in a pool of water. And a couple days later, we all hit it off. I just spoke to Brooks the other day, like recently, for about an hour via text back and forth. I got a message like, listen, we want you on the team. You would be an asset. I'm kind of like in the middle between South Florida. Like, I'm in this paradox is what I call it. I'm in this like melting pot of a lot of things going on, but it's a haul all the way down here, and then I'm not really in that like cool like island kind of vibe like the Keys where Randy is, where it's kind of laid back, it's more chill, there's not a lot of people. I'm in this like congested, full of busy. It's like always at 100 miles per hour here. So I've learned to deal with it, and sure enough, I accepted the offer and jumped on it. Got the first Cuda. I got that Yellow Jacket. That was my first Jackson boat, and fell in love with it. But I kind of outgrew that boat because I stand so much on that boat. And that boat's good for standing, but the secondary stability on it was killing my feet. And then, and that's the only boat from the Jackson lineup that I've ever fallen off the kayak. And I fell off more than once. I fell off a few times off that boat. I wrecked a few times. I never fell off the Cobra. I never fell off the Prowler, but I fell off that boat constantly. I was constantly wet. And then I jumped on the big rig, and that's when things were starting to evolve. I was really like stepping on the gas now. Yeah. I was getting a lot of offers about the guiding. A lot of people were picking up on it that I was down here. We were catching bonefish. We were catching tons of snook, redfish, catching everything. If you can stick the kayak in there, I was in there. I was starting to learn a lot of the lower keys this time now. I was like venturing down, thanks to Randy. I was venturing down. I knew Marathon pretty well, but I never really ventured over the 7 Mile Bridge. It was kind of like a mystery to me. So I met Randy and started chewing that up. I was finding stuff for Randy as well too, and kind of we were mixing back and forth. And to this day, me and Randy, I consider him a good friend. We talk just about weekly, like more than once a week. Like we just talked a little while ago. He was sending me pictures of bonefish that he caught on fly this morning, and it just grew. And then I want to evolve the kayak fishing down here. I wanted to make it seem more of a skiff guide. I have a lot of skiff friends that guide off of skiffs. So that was my idea. I wanted to run my guiding service like a skiff guide. They have certain rules and they run the skiffs a certain way to find these fish, and this is how they operate. So I took that piece of page and I brought it into my business. So I was like, you know what? I've had way too many inquiries. I'm always getting called by random people or getting sent emails that if I was a guide. So I started doing it part-time. I was working a city job. I was an inspector for a municipality down here in Miami. Thank God I left. It was just, I'm pretty sure everybody's heard Miami Beach. And
Oh yeah.
let me tell you, that's something for off the air. I can tell you some horror stories over there. Miami Beach is not what it's painted to be. Good job. It's a good job. I had fun and met a lot of cool people. Saw a lot of cool things. Had a lot of cool opportunities. But it is a wild west over there. So I started dabbling into the guiding. I started doing it part-time since I had a little bit of a leeway with the scheduling. I worked 4/10s. I had 3 days off, and I had a lot of PTO that they would give us. So I was never there. I would work 2 days a week sometimes, and as the years went by, I was less and less there and more guiding, and they just couldn't figure out what the hell was going on, why I was never there. I was taking leaves of absence and not even getting paid because I was picking up clients that wanted to fish not 1 or 2 days and wanted to fish 5, 6 days. I was like, well, this could start working. So I started evolving that, and then 2023, the end of 2020, I was really starting to pick up business. I was really, the business was starting to move. I was really exploring a lot more. I had the fishery, I don't want to say dialed in because I hate using that. I had an idea of what the fish were doing, because once I say they're dialed in, I lose total track. And these fish do whatever they want. You know, a lot of things change here. We can get a hurricane this year and my whole fishery flips. The whole script flips on me. The fish that used to be in one area will not venture there anymore because the bottom's been torn up and it's just different, and the fish are 10 miles down south. So now I have to reevaluate the whole fishery. So, you know, I have an idea what these fish want to do. I was really dialing in or really zeroing in on bonefish. That's where I wanted to base my business around, the bone fishing in South Florida. Miami was historically known for bone fishing. I remember catching my first bonefish, and I was probably like 4 years old, 5 years old. I was catching them in Biscayne. My grandfather would go on the boat to Biscayne, and we would do the safety valves, big finger channels that lead inside the bay but flush out to the reef. And we would fish these channels that were like between 15 to 18 feet, and we would catch lane snapper because that's what my grandfather wanted to do. He was a meat fisherman. He wanted to catch lanes and snapper and grouper, tons of grouper in there. And we would get hounded by these giant bonefish inside these canals. And my grandfather would get so infused. He knew what they were because he caught them in Cuba, but it just wasn't his thing. He's like, I'm not really big into, they're called macabi in Spanish. He's like, I really don't want to catch macabi. And these things were like 8-10 pound bonefish. And we were just getting mauled by these things. They were breaking leaders and hands getting torn up because these fish pull. And that was my first intro to these fish, and I loved catching them. Like they would hand me all the lines, and like, here, let him pull them all in, and I would pull in a dozen of these bonefish, and I just fell in love with them. All my life, I was always, intrigued by them, enthralled by them. And as in my adult life, I started chasing them more, and be like, well, I have the backyard, and I have the capabilities now because I can have access to them via kayak. They're not far. Everybody thinks you got to go a country mile to go find them. I mean, I can find them less than a mile away from the ramp. I don't have to go. My clients, they're like, this is where we're going to go. I was like, this is where we're going to go. And you could almost see the car. I'm like, we don't have to go far. They just won't come to this side of the car because it's too close to the car. Like, people fish that area, but you just have to go a couple 100 feet away from the ramp, and they'll come through here. They love lanes. They love certain alleyways. They're very habitual fish. If there's a break, They like traveling in certain areas, and they'll work the tide according to the water depth. Like lately, I've been finding them at like in a foot and a half. I'll find them shallower than that, and they'll tail. I found tailors last week. I found some tailors. My favorite way of catching them, and subpar 1 foot of water, and they're sitting in like 6 inches, 5 inches of water, and these big tails come up and they'll fan. And you'll see them working the flat. They'll come up and they'll swim real high in the water column, and they'll dip up, and it's like a redfish tailing, but they're more aggressive about it sometimes. And they'll dig hard. But they're very spooky when they're in that shallow water. Like you can't get within like 30 yards of them, but the kayak gives you that opportunity to get within that 30 foot of them. I can't do it on a skiff, but I can do it on a kayak. I mean, I've had them 5 feet from me, tailing, and I'm like ducked underneath the kayak. I'm like, don't breathe, don't move, don't do anything. And they give you the opportunity in the kayak. It's such a small footprint. So that just, made me think. I was like, wait a minute, with a kayak, I could be just as successful as it is in a skiff. I just have to think out my areas very well with the tides, learn what they're going to do, what time of the year, because it's a year-round fishery. So we can have this conversation now and catch bonefish today, and then show up in December, and we can still do bonefishing and still be successful. I think wintertime, you won't catch numbers in the winter, but you catch giants in the winter. Like a 10-pound bonefish will fry any reel you guys have in your queue right now. Like if you don't have 100 yards of line and a drag that can handle getting burnt to a crisp, they will burn you. They're rockets. They're exactly what you've heard people tell you in stories and what the TV is shown. That's exactly what they are. They're little missiles in the water, and they do not give up. They'll fight you from the start all the way to the boat. They'll fight you. They'll fight you to their death. I've had a lot of fish die on me. Like, especially this time of the year, they'll fight you so hard, and I won't even lift them out of the water. I'll grab my de-hookers and literally pop the hook or the fly off of them and never take them out, and they'll just flop over. Literally, they'll just bend over and flop over, and I got to jump in there and grab them and sit there for half an hour trying to revive them, and they won't, because the water is 89, 90 degrees, and there's just not enough oxygen for them to get themselves going. And I'll turn the torpedo on and kind of drag them around and see if they can get them into deeper water and like a little bit cooler water where there's current, and they still won't survive.
Really?
So I'm a little hesitant. I try to fish them early in the morning when the water's a little at its coolest temperature. I won't fish them midday, but like wintertime, I could care less. I can fish them 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Crap. I think fishing them midday in the wintertime is probably the best time of the day. I won't fish them in the morning. I'd rather fish them late in the afternoon, like midday to like beginning of like early afternoon, like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, high sun, where the temperatures have gone up. But this is your opportunity. That's your opportunity to catch big ones. So to go full circle, I just started growing. I had the big rigs. The big rigs really expanded my fishery. I was comfortable. I could stand. My clients were comfortable on those boats as well too. And I can cover a ton of ground. And then the torpedo showed up and just like even changed the things even more. Because now I can really push the envelope and be like, well, I can paddle the 3 miles to that spot, but now I can take a client and tow them the 3 miles and back, and now we can do some even more damage out there. So things evolved, and then unfortunately, I was fishing a client that I'm about to fish. I fish him a lot. I've been fishing this client now for 4 years, and he comes down every about 3 months. He gets sick of being home, and he'll drive down from Virginia. And I consider him a friend at this point. We talk a lot on the phone during the year, and he has an issue on the kayak for being there too long. He has a nerve issue in his leg, and his leg kind of gets numb. So I'm not going to hurry. I was in a hurry to get him off the boat one morning, and the marina, for whatever reason, on a Thursday, it's Miami for you. On a Thursday, it looked like a Saturday. It was a disaster. There was a million people at the marina on a Thursday afternoon, midday, 1 o'clock, and I was like freaking out because he needed to get off the kayak already. And I had an issue with the torpedo with the tilt and trim, and Jeff Little hadn't called me yet. He called me a little while after that. I was like, well, actually, he called me on the water, but I couldn't figure out what he was trying to tell me. He was just like, basically grab a rock and bang on the bottom of the motor. I couldn't figure that out. I was like, what? Grab a what? A rock, a boulder? And I was like, all right, cool. I couldn't get the motor. It was the trip sensor that got stuck, and what he was telling me is like, tap the bottom of the pylon, and the trip sensor will kick off, and you're back to being normal. So I gave up on it, and I was like, whatever, I'll deal with it when I get home. I get to the ramp, and I hurried up to get off, and that particular side of that ramp sucks, and I ended up falling. Literally, I knew what was going on because I avoid that end of the ramp. They poor maintenance here of our ramps in Miami. There's like maybe one ramp that they take care of. Everything else is falling apart. They don't clean them. There's algae. There's constant cars. I'm sure you guys have seen videos of constant cars sunken inside the ramp. Those are all basically 90% are all Miami ramps. People have no idea how to back a car up, and they just swamp their cars, and then bad quality. All you got to do is just put the rear wheels a little bit into the water, and you may slide in. So
right.
I ended up slipping and ended up getting hurt and tore tricep, complete tear of a tricep. So I had to get that
Oof.
repaired, completely
Wow.
repaired. Spent 18 weeks in rehab, like immobilized, couldn't move my arm. Finally got everything back together. So now both arms are finally good to go. It gave me a lot of time to think. I had 18 weeks of short-term disability, sitting at home, playing Call of Duty and watching TV because there's really nothing I can do besides my hands
Right.
in front of me. So
Right.
I was like playing a lot of video games, a lot of PlayStation, and doing research on SEOs, working on my website. You know, doing a lot of behind the scene work that I never got to do when I was guiding and working because I just didn't have time. It was my 9 to 5, and then my days off, the guiding, and then the few days that I did have off that I didn't have neither, I was spending time with the wife, and the kiddo was on the way as well too. So my wife said, "Good timing." You know, we've been together for 12 years, going on 13, never been hurt, and finally, as soon as we were gonna have a kid, I get hurt.
Right.
She's like, "Perfect time." But we managed, and it just, like I said, it gave me a lot of time to retrospect everything and just kind of sit here and dwell on my life in general, like. This has been a passion of mine for since I was a little kid, watching the Jose Wahebes, the flip pallets, you know, they were guides, you know. I this is what I wanted to do. And I was like, why am I in such a fear of jumping over this and taking this hurdle? I'm kind of pitter-patting around it and doing the part-time, and I decided to just be like, screw it. I'll quit my job when I get back. So I got back to Miami Beach. They thought I was coming back, and I gave them the turn around and be like, "I'm sorry, but I'm out." I think I worked for like 24 hours and I left and plunged into my business full time. So yesterday made the 29th, Memorial, made a full year of full time guiding.
Congratulations, man.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you. So this year, instead of I've been part-time guiding for almost 7 years. So I was doing it for 7 years part-time. I was losing clientele and dropping the ball a lot because I would have clients that would come in and I just couldn't take the time. I either had to refer them to Randy or refer them to another guide up north, and it just wasn't suited because they were here in Miami. And like, well, we don't want to drive down to Key West and we don't want to drive up to West Palm. You're just it. So I lost a lot of clientele, and I was like, man, this is clientele that I could have built a rapport with and gave them an experience on the water, and most of the clients usually either call back or they come back. So I was losing a lot on that. So I was like, you know what? My wife gave me the green flag. She's like, listen, do it. Like, go after your dreams, work on it, you know. So I had 18 weeks, a little over 18 weeks of being able to sit behind the computer, work on my website. Everything's been done by me. I worked on all the SEO stuff. The YouTube thing kind of started now because I figured that kind of all kind of plays into it now too.
Oh yeah.
I've learned that, unfortunately, the video thing, I gave up on it a long time ago. I was doing, before YouTube started like picking up, I was doing tons of YouTube videos, and we were pioneering doing crazy like little videos between like my buddies and us. We were all carrying on DSLRs before anybody in a kayak thought about carrying a DSLR. We had DSLRs on boats, and we were taking videos and taking pictures on that. Had GoPros, and I gave up on it. A couple of my friends did keep up on it, and they made careers out of being videographers. I just wasn't too. I like it, but it wasn't my thing at the moment. The fishing it just consumed me. I needed to focus on fishing. I couldn't do too many things at a time. But now that I have a little bit more control over it, the video thing is starting to come back. I'm sure you guys have seen a couple of videos that I'll pop up every once in a while on the group chat. And I got more stuff that I haven't popped up that I just don't have time. I mean, I got to throw it on YouTube, and I forget to schedule things as well too. And then I'm talking to clients. Like right before you guys, I was talking to Any Creek, which is my booking site. Thank God they showed up as well too, because it's just streamlined and made my business so much more professional. I mean, my clients can go into this booking site now. They can pick their dates. The deposits go in, and they're doing a whole blog post and a whole piece on me as well too now. So
nice
to help me out with my SEO as well too, and promote my business, because like I said, there's kayak guides down here, and the farther north you go in Florida, the more you start finding them, because you know it's more suitable. The red fishing and all that seems to be a little easy, more accessible. Down here, it's not as easy. It looks easy, but it's not. Fishing down here is difficult. So I have to find a way to make my clients to make that learning curve cut in half and be able to get my clients on these game fish that are, besides highly sought after and super pressured, they're not easy. They're smart. They're onto you constantly. You know, these fish are PhD graduates. I mean, the
Mhm.
permit. We'll start off from tarpon fishing. They're smart. You catch one tarpon and it's kind of over. You may catch another one, but it's over once you catch one or two. So now you got to figure out where to go find another pair, or figure out how to get them to eat again. And then bonefish, man, they're all over the place. They're going to be in one spot for a very short period of time. They're always on the move. I was just telling the guys from Any Creek, they're always on the move. Those fish, that's why they're probably so strong, because they're constantly on the move. It's like what pulls harder? You guys should understand this: a lake smallmouth or a river smallmouth. A river smallmouth
River.
is a different animal.
Oh, absolutely.
They're constantly working, which is basically what bonefish are. They're constantly working. They're working against the tide. They're working with the tide. They're always on the move. That's why these fish move so hard and they fight so hard. Besides having such a big rudder on them. So these fish are moving. And then permit, let's not even talk about permit. I mean, you want the most frustrating fish in the world, go focus on permit. You will be
That's what I've
humbled.
always heard.
You will be humbled immediately. Like, you can throw crabs at them. You can throw flies at them. I've hooked 6 permit on fly, and I lost all of them. And I've had good friends standing next to me that we can call right now, and they'll vouch. So I'm like, dude, I watched that fish eat, back and take off. Like, finally, Alex got his permit on fly, and they just come on button. I gave up. I really don't care anymore. Like, if I see them and I toss a fly at them and they eat and I land one, hooray. But I'll throw whatever I have. I'll throw crabs. Look, I caught 2 20-pounders this past week, and those things. I mean, the video. You don't even hear me talking. I looked at the video. I was like, man, I wasn't even like narrating like I usually do with a bonefish or like a red, like having fun. I couldn't talk. That fish had me pegged. Like I was nervous, and I was just huffing and puffing, trying to control my breathing, because that fish was tearing me apart. Like, it was giving me fits. 20-pound fish, and these fish they're strong. So I took a lot to handle to get that fish. And once you get them next to the boat, they're a handful next to the boat too. They don't want to be held. So you gotta grab that rudder and yank them out and pray that they come out. If not, they jump back in, and then for whatever reason, if you slip and they go back in, that's another 5-10 minutes again of agony trying to get that fish next to the boat again. So you do not want to let them go. You get the death grip on them. So, but those fish are wary. They know they're flat. They know their horizon. Their area really well. If you really study them and you look at pictures, they got the big old eyes. And I've watched them come up to the fly lands, and I've watched them come swim up and just stare at the fly. And they'll stare at it, and just swim off. And you're like, you got to be kidding me. And then you'll throw a live crab at them, and it's like, you get 2 reactions on a live crab. They'll freak out and take off and want nothing to do with it, or they'll freak out and spin around and just gobble the crab up. They just can't resist it. You can box the cast. You can botch it. You can put the cast like 10 feet away from them on their side or behind them, and I've watched them spin around and chase the crab down and eat it. When they want to eat, they eat. So, look, I've had friends caught them on top waters. I've had them. I've caught more permit on jig heads, looking for bonefish, jig heads, and a tip piece of shrimp than I have on crabs. So go figure. I haven't figured them out. I really don't. I don't understand that fish very well, and I try not to even bother with them. Like, I don't put them in a high. I used to put them in a real high pedestal, and I just kind of put them with everybody. I just kind of include them in everybody. They're like, they're just a fish. They swim. It's just a fancy jack. That's all it is. It's a smart jack.
Well, we got a question from the audience. Miss Jean wants to know if you do any freshwater fishing. You're in North Florida.
Yeah, we do all kinds of freshwater down here. We do the peacocks. I mean, I'm 10 minutes. I actually had clients not too long ago. They wanted to catch the first peacock. I think they were from Virginia or Tennessee, somewhere from that area. They wanted to catch some peacock, and unfortunately, we caught peacock. But unfortunately, we caught more snook and tarpon in freshwater than we did peacock. But I was kind of like bothered about it, and they were pumped about it. They're like, oh man, they were nice tarpon too. They were like 20-pound tarpon. Wow. And we were throwing live shiners at them, and they were just gobbling the shiners up. And I was just getting aggravated. I was like, man, they're beating the damn peacocks to the shiners and the snook too. And these were nice snook too, like 29, 27-inch snook. But they were thrilled about it. They're like, oh, we finally knocked off another species. You know, we didn't even think we were going to catch these things. And I was as far west in the Everglades, like looking for peacock bass as you can get, and they're in there. But we have such an array of fish down here. I mean, I got clown knives. I'm like 30 minutes away from them. I got sunshine bass. I got peacocks. I got snakeheads.
Yep.
I got bass. I got Mayans. I mean, you name it. I caught. There's tons of catfish down here. I've caught plenty of nice cats as well too. I mean, I'm like from where I live. I'm 45 minutes away from Lake O. So imagine that. And
Yeah.
they've been killing it in Lake O right now. They just did
Yeah.
a world record bag over there a couple weeks ago. I think Scott Martin was sour because he showed up and he thought he had the bag, and he was like, "No, dude." I was like, "You're like the bottom of the totem pole with your 32-pound bag or 34-pound bag."
It was
like,
that was insane.
Yeah,
It was like 30-pound bag after I seen that. That was unreal.
I've done it.
Paul.
We have areas that are about 30 minutes away from where I live that are STAs. They're staging areas for water to get pushed down. They come from Lake O, and they're WMAs, which is water management districts.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are open to the public that you could fish. So like what I'm talking in particular, you can fish Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays. That's when it opens.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you, the bass fishing in there. I hate bragging, but it was some of the dumbest bass fishing I've ever done. And I like bass fishing. I grew up fishing my grandma's lake, catching giant bass in her backyard that no one ever even knew or even bothered to catch in her house. And she lived in the middle of Miami, and no one would fish it. And I would sit back there watching these 8-pound, 7-pound bass swim by her lake on the dock. And I was like, I would go underneath the dock, and I figured out that underneath the dock were the palm fronds where my grandfather would throw, and there was crawfish down there. So I would just go grab 4 or 5 crawfish and just sit at the dock. I would watch the big bass come by, and I would just throw the crawfish in front of them, and they would just turn around, and you would see them like flare up on them and swallow them. I kept my first big bass was from that lake, and I kept it, and I froze it, and I had it in the freezer because no one would believe me that I caught like a 9-pound, like 8-pound, 9-pound bass. And I froze it, and it was my grandfather's freezer for about a year and a half until he was like, dude, I got to bury it in the backyard because this is ridiculous. We've had this fish in saran wrap sitting in the freezer for over a year because no one would believe me. Everybody like, they would brush me off. You didn't catch that. I'd be like, hold my beer, walk to the freezer and pull out this giant bass. I'd be like, here. So bass fishing down here is phenomenal. It all depends. I mean, South Florida, the bass fishing is all right. You'll catch your 6 or 5-pounders. There's too much competition, so they get kind of weird looking. Their heads are big and their bodies are real thin.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as you kind of get to that West Palm County line, that you get a little past West Palm, the peacocks kind of fizzle out, and the Mayans start fizzling out, and you start getting the local like fauna, which is with there's less competition. The bass seems to be more the apex predator there. That's when they start getting big. But that one particular spot, I went with a buddy of mine. We started bass fishing, and I think the first day that we went out there, I caught maybe 60 bass. Not one fish was under 4 pounds.
Wow.
Everything was 4 to 5. I must have caught maybe 30, 40 fish. It was so bad, and they were so fierce that I was breaking leaders. I was at 30-pound leaders, 20-pound leaders, and they were just like piranha. They were hanging out in these packs, hanging out on these edges of grass line, and we would throw we use gamblers out here, big swim baits, and we were sight casting them. We would throw it in front of them and start blah, 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 and they would just destroy these things and get you into the cover immediately, and they would break us off. I'm like, dude, I've never been broken off by a bass. I was like shocked, like shell shocked. And I must have caught, like that one particular day, I must have caught maybe like 8 or 9 fish that were in the 8-pound class, and maybe a dozen 7-pounders. And I've done it a handful of times. And the frog bite back there was absolutely insane. I have Savage Gear sent me a box of frogs, of topwater frogs, and I must have gotten like about 100 frogs from them. I destroyed all of them. I took a picture and sent it to them. I was like, in about 3 months, there was not a frog that existed in that box. They were all torn to shreds.
Jean says she used
I say
the
big easies.
Good
That's it. That's the one. The big easies. Bloop, 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 bloop. Oh my God, they destroy those things, and you can swim in a million different ways. I just like buzzing them, where they made this like particular sound. The buzz baits. I mean, buzz baits to me were phenomenal back there. You know, I would hang them off the side of the car on the way over there, the 30 minutes, and just wear them down so they get that nice little pitch. So they'd come in broken in. I'd break them out of the package, the booyahs, and just hang it out the back of the car.
Oh, yeah.
30 minutes of hearing clicking, but it was worth it. So by the time I got there, they were nice and worn in and like tuned in, and throw a burner frog, a little toad on it, and it was instant. I caught a lot of big bass on that, and then I learned how to punch. I was doing a lot of punching because we have a lot of cover here, a lot of grass. So I was figuring out the punching, and it was being successful. That to me, the frog and the punch were probably my favorite. And then what I always say, I think Cinco should be banned from tournament fishing because I think it's just, they really should. It was just dumb. Cinco should really be banned from tournament fishing because it's just not fair. It really isn't.
If the fishing gets tough, you can almost guarantee you can catch them on a Cinco.
A Cinco, always. I mean, you can wacky them. You can do whatever you want with a Cinco, and they just work. So I would just, but we were throwing these giant Cincos. They really didn't like the finesse Cincos in that one particular spot because we would try to finesse them in the deeper waters because there was some. It's a pit, and they just dug it out and let the swamp take over it. And some of the deeper water in the summertime, the big Cincos wouldn't work. So we were throwing these 6-7 inch Cincos that weighed like half a ton. And they would just annihilate the Cincos. I mean, I had a couple holes that you would throw, and every cast was like, you would just hear the rod, and just the drag just ripping out, and it's a 6 pound, 7 pound bass. But I did a lot of bass fishing. I started doing the KBFs, the local stuff where it was the statewide stuff. I won a few of those. Between me and my buddy, we were just like flip-flopping. We would flip-flop the wins. So I won a few of those. I mean, we had qualified for the state the championship to go up to Gunners, and we were supposed to go to Gunners. My buddy had an elbow injury as well too, so we weren't able to go up there. But we were planning to go up there and kind of wet our feet in there inside the bass scene. I love it. I love chasing pickles. I really do. It's fun down here, but unfortunately, the guiding kind of takes precedent, and
right.
I don't have enough time to do the bass fishing as much as I want to.
So now, if somebody wants to, let's say somebody wants to book a trip, like, what are some of the things that you offer to clientele? Some of your specialized trips that you could take somebody on today if they wanted to go.
It depends on the year, but I'd say today, I mean, you would have the Keys. We would do the flats fishing, so you would have that. We're anywhere in the Keys, from Key Largo down to Big Pine. It all depends on what the tides are doing. Wintertime, I start offering more kind of October. I start offering more in the backcountry. That's fun because you're going through small little creeks, getting away from people. We're going to no motor zones back there. And I have a trillion places back there that you can get lost back there. Like clients are like, they have no idea how to come back. So I can't disappear on them. So, but the fishing is phenomenal. I mean, 40 snook days, 50 snook days, bunch of tarpon, redfish, trout, big jacks. I mean, it just gets wild back there. I've seen black drum back there too. I've had phenomenal black drum. I go all the way up to the West Coast. I'll do a couple trips over there on the West Coast as well too. I'll do the snook. I'll do some tarpon fishing over there too. There's some redfish over there. A lot of redfish over there. I'll do the beach thing every once in a while for the triple tail. I kind of hit and miss. It needs to be weather related and how the traps are doing for the triple tail. But those things are fun. But it all depends on my client's experience, what type of fishing they've done, if they're good with the bait caster or they're good with the spinning rod. Could we get decent shots? What's your accuracy? And then if you're a beginner, because I do from advanced to beginner. If you're a beginner and you really don't understand the concept of it, or don't know how to throw even a bait caster, or not a bait caster but a spinning rod, you're still learning. I have a program for them as well too. You don't have to sit and chase fish down and be standing up the entire time. We can sit down and soak baits and have these fish come to us. I can get fish to come to me. So I know where their lanes are at. I know where they're going to traverse. I know where they're going to frequent the most. So I kind of position myself in these spots, and I could have the fish come to us, and we could almost hand feed these fish. We're sitting down. The kayaks are such a small footprint, and since you're so low to the water, the fish don't bother with you. I've had bonefish swim underneath the kayak and eat pieces of shrimp underneath the kayak. Man, I've lost more bonefish underneath the kayak than I like to even admit, where I've literally told the clients, like, just put the bait and let open the bail. And the bait's underneath, the bonefish eats, and the impact is so close, and it's such a hard impact when they take off that they just snap the leaders. Because I'm fishing 12 pound, 15 pound leaders. They're super light and 10 pound braid. That first initial shock from the leader, usually you're cooked on 10 pound braid, or on 10 pound leader or 12 pound leader. It's cooked. There's nothing you can do about it. But there's a program for everybody. If you're advanced, then all right, I'll pick a flat where I know these fish are going to come in. They're going to slide in early in the morning. They're going to tail, and we can kind of cut them off and throw fly at them, or even throw the spin and be very finesse, throw real light stuff at them, little shrimp, little jigs, and coach them, like feed them, get them to eat, like watch the fish react to your cast, watch them come up, and then you'll see the little wiggle of their tail because they're trying to pin your shrimp down or your little lure down, and that's at the latter start of it, the advanced portion of it. But even intermediate, like you can cast, you can kind of stand up in the kayak, which is the beauty about the kayaks, the Jacksons. They're all capable of being able to stand up. The bite is probably one of the best acquisitions I've made in a long time. I spent a really long time not buying kayaks because they weren't fitting for my area here. And the bite came out, and gotta thank Chris Funk. Gotta give him a shout out because I bugged him for about 2 days nonstop, like texting and bugging him, talking on the phone, and just getting feedback because I do believe in his feedback. He's pretty blunt and honest when he tells you something.
Very much.
So he adamantly told me, he's like, you're gonna be happy with these boats. So I got 2 bites, and I'm about to. I want a third one and I'm gonna end up rigging that third one for me, where I could use that boat for some of these crappier launches where it's not a ditch, it's literally a cliff that I gotta go down, and now with the Take 2, that's a big boat. That's a little bit more boat than I need, to be honest with you. But I'm actually gonna start working something new with that boat as well too. I can get a second person. I can stand on the back of that boat and get a person in the front standing, and I can push pull them around without a hitch. I've done it already twice now with 2 clients where he's gone out on his bite. He can't see the fish, and we're having issues seeing fish. So I park his bite, have him hop into my boat. I jump to the back of the boat, and I just push pull. And I can call fish out and be like, all right, 10 o'clock, there's a fish coming. You see the grass spot right there where it's meeting that little sand. Look at the sand. You see the shadow? Yes, I see the fish. There we go. And I can hold the boat and position the boat for my clients a little better. And they can get better shots at these fish with that Take 2. So I'm kind of working that into the system. I'm kind of working the bugs out. I can't do it with everybody because not everybody is as nimble as some of the people that I've done it with, where they can hop in from one boat to the next. But clients that I could, they're higher in caliber, that I can get them portage from one kayak to the other without a hitch. And the Take 2 it's a barge. It's incredibly fast and nimble. It doesn't like to spin around. The boat's, that's about the only complaint I have. It's hard to get her to turn, to pivot, especially poling. Even with me standing in the back and someone in the front, she doesn't pivot really well. But I'm used to the big rig that I can do spins around with that boat. But it's an amazing platform. It eats up gear, and it's fast with the torpedo. I gained about like 25% more efficiency from going from the big rig to that boat, and I'm really liking it. So still working some kinks out. I got some other ideas that I'll be posting on the team chat so you guys can see it. I got an idea for the front of the boat to mitigate some space and store stuff up there so people could have an extra storage room up there. So I got an idea with some kydex. So that's in the work, but that's kind of the program down here. It all depends. I ask a lot of questions from my clients. I tell a lot of my clients not to be apprehensive and not to how can I say it? Not to be scared to because I get clients who are like, oh, I can fly cast, but they think that if I tell them they can't fly cast, that I'm gonna be like, listen, we can't do this. No, just tell me, because then I go mentally prepared and I can help you improve. A lot of my fly clients, I'll have them fly cast at the ramp, and if they can't fly cast, I'll just haul the kayaks back out and be like, listen, we're gonna sit on the side of the ramp for about an hour. It's part of the program here, and we'll try to work on that double haul. That double haul is like, it's a must down here. If you don't have a double haul, just don't come down. Just practice on the double haul. And if you do come down, like, let me know, so we can either meet up the day before the trip, and we can spend 2 or 3 hours at the park working on your cast. So when you show up in the morning, we can kind of fine tune it in the morning and warm it up, and then we can progress in the cast as during the day and just keep working, fine tuning these casts. But it's just like spinning rod. Just let me know. Like always tell clients, I was like, just let me know what type of caliber you are. I was like, I could care less if you're intermediate, if you've never even casted a rod before, you've never done it, you just want to learn. It's because that's the clientele that I want. That's where I'm gearing my fishing toward. I want fresh clientele that is learning, that's learning how to kayak fish, that's learning how to get themselves into the sport. I don't want to scare them away or be like, this is too difficult or this is not going to pan out right. Like I'm not comfortable. I don't want to give them that appearance of the sport, because it's not, because the sport's it's very personal. It's like a romantic novel, basically. You know, you're very up and personal, close to these fish, and when things go right, it's beautiful. You know? You get to see these fish eat and swim in their environment. We're fishing gin clear water in less than a foot of water. Sometimes you see everything happens and involves and comes together and dissolves in front of you at the same time. So it's a unique fishery. It really is. I just never understood why not. I mean, how can I put it? I mean, I just never understood why it's never grown. I guess I shouldn't be complaining, because then if it grows too much, then I got more problems. But I never understood. I think it's the hard part of it. It's difficult down here. It really is. It's not for the faint of heart. But if you apply time, and it doesn't need to be a tremendous amount of time. Like everybody thinks that you have to be down here for a month. You know, a couple days, and you can kind of put things together and have an idea of what it is. But I never understood why no one ever, any company. I mean, I was part of Reddington, and they would come down here every once in a while to fish down here. And they would rather go to Belize, and then they would send me pictures of Belize catching like 5 little 3-pound bonefish. I'm like, you could have came to the States and just jumped in the kayak, and we could have caught 5 or 6, 8 to 10 pound bonefish on fly and tarpon, and done the same thing, and you would have been 10 minutes from home on your flight. But they always stopped here and dropped everything off, which was such a, I mean, I'm complaining, but it was boxes full of crap that they would send me. I'm like, dude, I don't need a crate full of rods and reels and gear. But I never understood why I think the industry's always been scared. I don't think there's enough stigma, like enough limelight behind it down here. Again, I'm complaining, but not. I want everybody to come down here and swamp this area. But it's a fishery that at some juncture, everybody should do it at least once, where you can kind of witness this and see it and enjoy it. I think it's just like for me, I've never freshwater fished. I've never caught trout, which is part of my list, and I've never caught a smallmouth. I've been dying to catch a brown, and I've been dying to catch a smallmouth. I've never been able to experience that, and I have to do it at least once in my lifetime. Go up north and experience this, because I want to see where these fish live. I've seen plenty of videos, and I've seen plenty of pictures. There's plenty of media outlet for me to see it, but one thing is seeing it, and one thing is like sitting out there and breathing in that air, smelling the conifers and the water, the fresh water, and hearing the stream for yourself. You know, where you're cognitively like interacting with this. You know, so it's just like being in the Everglades at 5 o'clock in the morning and smelling all the different smells that the Everglades have to have, and hearing the bugs and the frogs, and it's just going off, and you're hearing the fishes pop, and it's something that at least once in your lifetime you have to experience and come down here and do it. It's the same thing on flats. So it's kind of what I gear my fishery toward. I try to educate my clients as much as possible about the area, the ecology, the fish, what travels through here. Look, with the last 2 trips, the day before, last Monday, we turned the corner and there was a little baby crocodile sitting in the middle of the bay. I've fished the bay since like 2008, and I've only seen 2 in the middle of the bay. That was the second one. So my client got to see a croc. He's never seen a crocodile in his life before. He's like, oh, I've never seen a croc. And I could have reached out and grabbed it if I wanted to. He let us get real close to it, so I let him get close to it and look at it. I'm like, oh, you know, these are the distinctions between a crocodile and a freshwater alligator. And then the following day, we came in there, and there was a bunch of otters sitting out in the middle of the bay, goofing around, doing their thing. You know, there was a little baby otter, and there was the mama and the dad were doing their thing, collecting food. And my clients got to see that. They had never seen otters. They didn't even know otters existed in the United States or like in South Florida. I was like, dude, these things are everywhere down here. And I was like, they only show up in like super negative tides down here. They kind of get pushed out of the mangroves and roll over the flats. They get on the flats. So they're cool, and you get to hear them chirping and doing their thing and playing, and mom scolding the little baby. So we sat there for like an hour watching this, you know, with bonefish kind of tailing in between them, and we were watching the otters more than we were watching the bones. So that's kind of the experience that I've built this business behind. Like,
That's awesome.
fishing is the staple. This is what you're down here. You want to catch your dream fish. Like, I basically tell clients, tell me what you want to do. Like,
Mhm.
I don't tell them what I want to do or this is my program. The first thing that ever comes out of my mouth when I meet clients is, what do you want to do? We've never met. Like, I need to know what you want to do. Like, tell me what you want to do, what your goals are, what you want to learn from this, and
Right.
that's what we'll build. This package. This is what we're going to build, and this is where we're going to go off of, and that's where we stem our business off of. Like,
That's a good way to do it.
and the client's paying, so he's the one in charge. I was like, I'm just a guy that just has local knowledge, you know,
Yep.
endless amount of local knowledge, and I'm going to do my best to appease you, and hopefully we can put this together. You know?
So as we kind of round this thing out here, talking about getting in touch with you and all that, how do the guests get in touch with you to book a trip and to set everything up? What are the steps that they need to go through to make that contact?
You can reach me through my website, which is bonecollectorkayakfishing.com. You can also reach through social media. I talk to plenty of clients through social media with Instagram, which is bonecollector_kayak fishing. You can send me a message there, and then we'll connect. And then once we kind of pick out and we have an idea what we want to do and what you want to do, I send you to my booking link, which is through Any Creek, or you can go through Any Creek too, and you can reach out to them and they'll just link you to my booking site, and you can leave me a message through there, and you can do your booking through your dates. You can see my calendar through there and have an idea of what I have open, when I have availability, when I don't have availability, and
Mhm.
that's kind of the easiest way of doing it. Or, I mean, easiest way is probably through my website. My email's there, my phone number's there. I'm pretty good about picking up my phone and answering messages on Instagram and like social media. It takes me a while. I try not to be on there as much as possible. But text message or an email, I get those alerts immediately. So I have it where I could hear them, and I have it kind of set up where distinct noise where I know it's a client, and I'm pretty good about picking up or sending a message, even if I'm on the water, and be like, I'll call you back. I'm on the water. Just leave me a brief little message, and as soon as I get back in the car, I usually give my clients a call. I'm pretty good about it. So those are usually the easiest ways to reach me. So email, phone number, my Instagram, Facebook, or through Any Creek. But
Awesome.
Yeah. And so one of the other things we like to let our guests do is thank the people that they need to thank, sponsors and the different things like that. And obviously you're told them where to find you on social. So I'll let you thank whoever you need to thank there.
Starting off with Jackson, because I mean, if it wasn't for Jackson Kayaks, we wouldn't be having this chit chat. So they're first and foremost, they get the thanks because they've made a hell of a product for the last few years, and it's kept me in the water, and it's just pushed me harder and harder and harder, and hopefully they keep growing, and hopefully we can make a boat that kind of gears toward flats fishing. It's the dream. Kind of gear down here, and then Torpedo to Jeff Little for always, especially for helping me out recently. He really got me out of a bind with an engine issue, so Torpedo's actually changed everything. And to Any Creek for helping me with my bookings and keeping things streamlined. They've been a huge asset as well too. So these are 3 pivotal companies that have made my business grow and build on it and expand. So, and make it even better than what it is before. So, and make it easier, streamlined, and user friendly for clients to come down here and enjoy themselves. So.
Very awesome, man. Very awesome. Well, Alec, Captain, we thank you for being on the show tonight. And
Chad, Zach, thank you guys.
Hey, man, it was awesome. Thanks to all you guys in the crowd that listened to us tonight. We always appreciate you guys taking time to listen to our guests and see what their story's all about. And tonight is no exception. Hopefully, Zach and I will be signing up for one of them peacock bass trips here real soon.
Yeah. I'm bringing the camera for that one. Peacocks are one that not only have I wanted to catch,
It's on our
but I want
list.
a photo of that fish for sure.
Dude, we can set it up where you can catch, just knock everything out. Where you can catch the clown, you can catch the peas, you can catch the hybrids, and there's some snakehead kind of not too far from there. They're around. I mean, you can literally catch all 3 in one spot park. You can catch a dozen peacocks, catch your clown, catch the hybrid, and catch your freshwater bass, your Florida bass strain as well too. So they're there.
As long as you let Chris Funk come with me and hold my hand to ward off the gators and the snakes, we'll be fine.
I've invited Chris. I've told Chris a million times he gets by here, but he never makes it far enough down here. As a matter of fact, I am upset with him. He did make it down here. I think he was on his honeymoon or something down here in the Keys, and he didn't call me. I was pretty kind of bummed about it. I was like, man, dude, you could have called me. At the very least, I could have had lunch with you and your wife. We could have had lunch. But to his avail, there was a tropical storm coming through.
Usually, if Jameson's around, the tropical storms are coming. So,
seriously,
yeah.
I think I fished with James a handful of times, and you get like one good day of good weather. I think he came down with Jim Sampson one time.
Yep.
Or no, it wasn't him. Jim Sampson came down one time, and of course, he dragged down twice. He's dragged down weather. I was like, dude, we can't fish, dude. Every time you come down, I feel bad for him. You drag some type of like. Yeah, dude, stay home. You drag. We've had like perfect weather, and you're dragging down all this wind and weather and storm. But Jameson, it's like 50-50. He does bring some good weather and some bad weather sometimes. But those guys are all fun to fish with. Absolutely. But Chris Funk owes me a trip when he came down here and just literally drove right by me. Like literally had to drive by me. I was like, dude, you drove like you were on the turnpike. You drove like 5 minutes. I could have thrown a rock at you in the car if I knew it was you.
Well, hopefully we can make it all happen one day. That would be awesome.
Yeah, we need to bring down a few guys down here and do a shoot down here. I told Jameson that. I was like, it's been a while. I remember they came down a few times.
Yeah, it's been a
big
while.
Group of you guys, and we fished down in the Lower Keys. We had some good times down there. So it's time. We got to do something down here.
Yep, absolutely.
It's just a hell of a drive.
Yeah. Well, Captain, I appreciate you being on the show.
Guys.
Like I said, it's been a good one. So all you guys that are listening, check back with us tomorrow night. Tomorrow night we've got Jackson Kayak Dock Talk on a Wednesday night, our new scheduled time throughout the summer. So we'll see you guys tomorrow night. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.